So let's get to the text today. We're on page Kuf Yud Zayin. We're about to finish this section of the letter in where Rabbi Yoel is, to quote his words in the first line of Kuf Yud Zayin, Vos treiti rakop. He actually cited that, which means, what are you messing with my head? He was quoting the Satmar who say to the Lubavitcher, what are you messing with my head with these intellectual nuances? You guys are Zionists and puzzle. And it's interesting, yesterday on one of the YouTube clips, I got a message from someone, I don't know who he is. He asks me, are you a Zionist or an anti-Zionist? So either he's a fool, or he's playing with me, or he didn't take the time to listen to the 25 or 26 shiurim, which probably he didn't. Or I'm able to hide the truth well. So, Rabbi Yoel here, is always putting himself into the shoes of the accuser, the attacker. And he seeks to unravel the warped way of thinking. And this is something, just for another second, that he taught us, and that we automatically, by learning from him. His genius was in many areas, but his genius also was, he would show you that you would think about this in this way, and then he would show you that it's wrong, that way of thinking, and then he would tell you the right way of thinking. Like a friend of mine says, he did brain surgery on us. It was amazing, because the way he said the way the normal average student would think about this particular Yidden Chassidus was correct. And many times, sometimes it was correct, but many times he would say, it's not the way you should be thinking about it. And that was a very subtle way of training our minds how to analyze a piece of Chassidus. And the same, by the way, is the Soloveitchiks. The Brisk, that's what Brisk does with the Gemara and the Rambam. It's exactly what they do. It's not that others, don't know Gemara and don't learn it deeply, but their keen, sharp mind and clarity, identifies exactly with how you should approach this piece of Gemara and the train of thought that's necessary. And why other train of thoughts at the end of the day is wrong pshat in the Rambam or in the Gemara, whatever they're looking at. And that's a gift, and it's important. And I would think in your college education, I would assume you had a professor or two who had this type of mind and taught that way, and maybe you didn't. I don't know, but this was the specialty of this particular teacher, Rabbi Yoel, which we didn't have. I had other, very, very big Talmidei Chachamim, but they didn't have this gift. This is a real, and it was a real gift, and to be able to sit at his feet and see how he puts himself into it. And that's what he's doing here in the Kuntris. So when he says the Gedreit HaKop, it's not talking messing with the head. He's talking about the Satmar who say Lubavitch Chabad is messing with the head, and they are straightforward. You guys identify with the Zionists. You go to their marches to put on tefillin because you're really Zionists. You say the Alpha Pi Shechati Yisrael, who quoting the Gemara, even though he sinned, he's a Jew. You're a Zionist, and they're quoting that, and what Chabad quotes is night and day, as we said, what we learned, makes no difference. So let's continue now. Kuf Yud Zayin, last paragraph. Hari Pashut. It's simple. it's self-understood, the Misha Yitin Kein Uksiluvar, someone who will argue and say that Chabad are innovators and therefore it's forbidden, is a big fool. Why? Because it's an open, explicit Gemara. The Gemara says that you should be Makarev and people and therefore, what are you saying? That we're doing what the Gemara says and therefore we're bad, therefore we're Rishayim. He also came Bisman Shein Yisrael Takifa. And the fact that this was not done when the Jews didn't have the upper hand, because they couldn't do so. It's not they didn't want to do so. They did want to do so. But imagine going in the streets of Moscow and Leningrad and wherever else, and when you weren't allowed to teach Yiddishkeit to children and the youth, and you did it openly, you never saw the light of day again. You were sent away, you never came back. And guess what? It happened. It happened many times. Yes, Moshe. Yes?
Yeah, you're speaking here about outreach to other Jews right now, specifically. I'm asking, because the reason I'm asking is because when we think, because I would say, because in 1967, shortly after the 67 war, right, Moshe Dayan, he started giving things, he started he was catering to the Arabs. In other words, we could have kept things. Like, for example, we could have kept, complete, shlita on Har Bayis.
That's not what he's talking about. What you're talking about is not at all what he's talking about.
That's what I'm asking. What's he talking about?
He's talking about this idea that to reach out to others is a kind of violation of doing innovative things in Judaism that wasn't seen before in our history, and etc. That's what he's identifying. They he brought this Gemara about Yisrael Yodin Kifa, that Jews have the upper hand, as a sidebar to respond to arguments of the Satmar. But I don't believe he's talking about that. At least not right here. Maybe elsewhere. So let's continue. There are those, again referring to the Satmar, those that argue, why do you exert effort? That the idea of exerting effort with the Chafshiyim, with the non-religious, Ayadei Dibur, through speaking to them, it's A, a waste of time, B, an innovation, and B, and C, you're not allowed to do it because you don't have an upper hand. The See, Moshe, look at the line here. You'll see that what I said before is exactly what he says here. The since in the previous generations, they never did this. Because they couldn't do this. Therefore, even today, that we do have the ability to speak about Yiddishkeit and to reach out. That's the Satmar argument.
Think about the public menorah lightings.
Yeah, whatever.
Right?
Yeah, that too.
We're going to do that in Europe. No way.
No way. Exactly. Etc. Etc. Although the Gemara says, he's going back to this Gemara in Ksubas, I believe, every time. It's a mitzvah to reach out and bring people in. He brought the commentator called Nesivos, Paisik LaHalacha. He gives a rendering, a halachic rendering, Shezeh mitzvah gam yochet she'ene b'chlal bezdin. Not only is it a mitzvah on the bezdin to enforce the tradition and the mitzvahs, but it's a mitzvah that the Nesivos says on the individual. Not just the bezdin. So now he says, the Elu Atainim Kach. Rabbi Yoel now is refuting and saying, those that argue that this shouldn't be done because it's innovation, Heim Shoitim V'Nivarim Midas. They're fools and stripped from any sense of intelligence. Ve'ein tzarich la'anos lehem klal, and one does not need to respond to them at all. Mimaimer HaKosuf, because it says clearly, Al tan ksil bivaltoi. Don't refute, don't answer the fool with his disgust, because the fool is disgusting in his argumentation, being a damn fool. Don't waste your time to answer him. So Reb Yoel basically saying at the end of this that this idea, let's go back to on page Kuf Yudala, the heading, Hamivtsoyim Vatankim, the mitzvah campaigns and the tanks and of the fight against assimilation. There are, in a nutshell, I'm giving you now the summary of these 2 pages. That the argument was, this was not the tradition, it wasn't done before in Russia and in Europe and on and on and on. What business do you have to do it? And his answer is, of course it wasn't done, because we couldn't do it. Our hands were tied. We didn't have control. But today it isn't that way, and therefore we have an obligation to it. That's the summary of what it says here. 1 second, Moshe. Now, I told you last time, several shiurim before, that the Rebbe, the same Rebbe that he's talking about here, the Rebbe, in the first year after we won the war, the 6-day war, the Rebbe told the Chassidim to leave Eretz Yisrael. To leave Yerushalayim Erev Pesach. To leave Yerushalayim Erev Pesach, because according to Rabbeinu Yechiel of Paris, that commentator, he says you're obligated to bring a Korban Pesach if you're in Yerushalayim when you have control. So maybe this does touch now with what you were saying before, Moshe. So there was a point where the Jewish world thought that we will now be in control and be the only ones to make the decisions about Har HaBayis and Hebron and everything else. And we won't have the 60 plus years or 70 years of fighting in Meshigas that we still have, and maybe with Hashem's help, this government will end some of those things. And I can see already that they're giving them a hard time, and they're capitulating. The big talkers now, once they get into the Knesset, they sing another song. With their yarmulkes and everything else, they sing another song because of the pressure of America and the world. But let's hope they'll have the koyach to stand strong. The only one probably who would have not capitulated, it seems that way, would have been Meir Kahane, although Sholem, who's not with us any longer, but it seemed that he would have had the koyach to withstand the pressure. It reminds me, in 1976, in August, I believe, Menachem Begin, the former prime minister, came to America, and he visited the Rebbe. He visited Rebbe Moshe Feinstein, but he visited the Rebbe, and there's a tape of it, and probably a transcript today of it. And he said to the Rebbe, it's amazing. If you look at the Rebbe's words from the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and the early 90s, it didn't change. In these issues, it didn't change. And it just goes back to like this, this Russian stubbornness of Torah, and Soloveitchik had it, like, you don't wave, But the Rebbe really, the Schneersons, people can play and say, it's nonsense. I tell you as a historian, someone who studied the Rebbe and his writings and everything else and participated for 25 years, he didn't change. It was the same tune. And people got bent out of shape, big time. And money stopped coming in when he came out with the Who is a Jew. And so, it started to die down. And then in the early 80s, he started again. And it made such a uproar by the Reform movement. And some of them were close to Shluchim. And they stopped giving money. And you didn't change him. You didn't change him. Because of money, I'm going to stop what I believe is the Torah's word. So the Rebbe, in the earliest of years, he spoke about this idea, and he didn't change his tune, and that's it. And that's it. So he was hoping that that we would not capitulate and not give back land, which they did, unfortunately, and we have such a balagan and headache because of it, struggling every day, to keep our land. Our land, we have to fight to keep, it's like Mishigas. It's our land, It's not about we're being mean or evil. It's our land. What is your problem? Bereshis Bara Elikim, Rashi says, you have to believe in Rashi. If you don't believe in Rashi, then Rashi's words are meaningless. Rashi says, Hu nota lehem v'lakach. He gave it to them and he took it back. So Rashi doesn't know. And Rashi is not a Lubavitcher. And Rashi is not a Chabadnik. Rashi. Every Litvak learns Rashi. Every Yid from the Rashi, right? The same Rashi says in the first Rashi, the second Rashi over there in Bereshis, that Hashem created the world. And he gave Eretz Yisrael to the Yidden. And he decided to take it away, and he'll take it back. So it's our land. But we didn't keep that. We didn't keep it. We gave away. And so that's when we lost control, Moshe. So we're the owners, but we have squatters sitting in our land. And halachically, there are issues that come along with that. So some of those issues are that certain things you couldn't do, but at a certain point, you were able to do it. And one was the 67 war, which led to the seemingly our control. So the Rebbe felt that, therefore, the law of Rabbi Yechiel of Paris would apply. But next year, we saw that they gave back, and so the Rebbe said, there's no obligation. We have no shlita. So, Moshe, I'm just saying this because I don't know if maybe you weren't here, you were traveling, you weren't here when I spoke about it the first time. I was repeating some of what I said then, that this is not just talk, but it had a practical implication in the halacha that's associated with Erev Pesach. And the same would have been in other issues. Nevertheless, regarding what we're discussing here in this letter, the accusation and attack that we shouldn't reach out and we shouldn't be mekarev and all that because we are the underdogs is nonsense, because in this area we're not underdogs anymore. Well, you could go, one second, you can go to anywhere in the world, anywhere, and stand on the street. No one's going to, put you in jail for that. Maybe they'll put you in jail for other things, but not for that. Yes, Moshe.
I just wanted to ask, what you mentioned the Gemara, when Rav Yol, he refers to this Gemara. You said Ksubas. What did you know?
Yes. Page Kufyu Dalet. Turn over there, please. Fourth paragraph. There's Masechta Ksubas. You see that?
Yeah.
That's the Gemara. Daf Pei Vav Omid Aleph.
And what is the Gemara?
The Gemara says you have to force a Jew. The best is to force them to do the mitzvah of making a sukkah and taking a lulav.
Okay.
It's this paragraph number 4 that Rabbi Yoel is referring to throughout. Okay, and the commentator Nesivos is also mentioned there, I believe. If not there, no, in the next paragraph. Oh, and in paragraph number 5, this obligation and instruction to enforce Torah, mitzvahs, and all that, lo rak ala bezdin, doesn't only apply ala bezdin, elagam ala yochid, also the individual. It brings kameshkosov hanisivos, b'choyshe mishpat b'biurim. So it's these two things that he's referring to later in the contrast. Let's go on now. Page Kuf Yud Ches. His Chabras L'Rashoyim. One of the other great sins of Lubavitch that Satmar attack uses is our being buddies with the wicked. Who are the wicked? The non-religious. This is a crime and a sin. So Rabbi Yoel writes about this. Let's see what he says. Inyan Avos Yisrael. The idea of loving a Jew applies Gam L'Rashoyim. even to the wicked. Says, he says, this is not the Lubavitcher Rebbe's novelty. You could find it at length in Tanya, Perek Lamed Beis, chapter 32, Uve'oid Kama Svarim, and many other Svarim. Ayin Shom Barucha, look over there at length, and you'll see how he explains it. So, in other words, your issue with Chabad reaching out to what you call Rishoyim and being Chaver, his Chabrut, being friendly with what they call Rishoyim, it's an idea of Ahavas Yisrael, and already the Alter Rebbe speaks about it and its importance in chapter 32 to love every single Jew, even a Jew who is not religious, who you call a Russia. And not only is the Alter Rebbe the one who speaks about it, but many others for him do. So don't blame the Lubavitcher Rebbe, but if anyone, and you're wrong in blaming anyone, go back to 200 years. But they ask a question. The Chazal say, Al tischabel Russia, Pirkei Avos, right? Don't befriend a wicked person. Kipirush. So Rabbi Yosef says, Ein zestira. It doesn't contradict this the statement of the sages. Al tischabel Russia. Don't befriend a Russia. Why? Kipirush. What is the meaning of that saying? That the Russia is primary. And you join and are ancillary to the Russia. Conversely, when you, the from Jew, the Torah Jew, is the Iker. You are bringing the Russia close to Torah mitzvahs. We were commanded, lios oev es abrios, quoting again from Pirkei Avos, love creatures, creations, umekarvon leTorah, and bring them close to Torah. The gam elu shem brios ba'alma, even those that are, their only virtue is that they're creations of God. The Gamar Shoyim Bechlal, including the wicked who are included in this category. Tzorech lemoshchem bechavlei avosas ava. This is from Tanya, all from Tanya, chapter 32. You have to pull them with thick ropes of love. Lekarvim l'Torah mitzvahs, bring them closer to Torah mitzvahs. Keinhu lehedya. So it says explicitly, Tanya Shom in Tanya chapter 32. Hetakti mishom kemata loshen. Rabbi Yoel writes, I cited almost verbatim the exact words of Tanya. Chiluk hanal, this difference, bein oev esabrias umekavim l'Torah, to love creatures, creations, everyone, people, and bring them close to Torah. Uvein val tischaber l'Rusha, and between that and the dictum not to befriend a Russia, ayin gam came ba'apirusha al Masechtas Avos Marav Chesed Lavram. Look over there, Zekeno, the grandfather of the Chidah, ala Mishnah. You'll find his comment over there on the Mishnah about the Schabel Rosha, Vala Mishnah Oyev Esabriyos, V'ayin Gam B'Hapirush Neitzer Chesed al Mishnah. He cites another book called Neitzer Chesed, about the Schabel Rosha, V'zel Shoynei. He now quotes a sefer called Neitzer Chesed on the Mishnah. V'al T'Schabel Rosha, don't befriend the Russia that you will have friendship with him. Al Tarchiku. Don't, it says don't befriend him, but nevertheless, don't distance yourself from him. Dilma, because maybe Yasa Teshuva, he'll do Teshuva, al Yodecha, Shetiskarev Oisoi, or Shaloi Yelech, because maybe he'll do Teshuva because of you, because you brought him close. Oi, and he won't go and destroy the world because you brought him close. Al Kain, he writes, the Sefer Neitzer Chesed writes, Hanochem, this is in bold, Hanochem the Karev Russia. It is appropriate to be Makarev of Russia. Avaloilias imam chaverim, that doesn't mean to become their best friends. Bishum shutvis b'schayra, and he's actually very specific. Don't do business with them. So until here is the end of the citation. The Kain Kosev b'medrash. 1 minute, 1 second, please. Let me just finish the paragraph. The Kain Kosev b'medrash Shmuel b'shem Shuni v'ayin gam b'hoin osher mibal b'shleschach achsodim. It gives other citations. Yes, Yoni, what were you saying? Or whoever was saying.
That might have been me.
Yeah.
Nocher Chesed is the Kamarnas Perish on Pirkei Avos.
Yeah, Shekoyach. So the Kamarna says these special heavy words. Al Kain Nochen l'karev Rasha. So what Chevra? What's the distinction here? Let's back up. The difference between Tischaber as befriending and Al Tarchiku, don't distance yourself. It's like the Gemara says elsewhere, Yonasin, Kabdeyu v'chashdeyu. I told you years ago, it's one of my most famous quotes in the Gemara. Respect the person, Kabdeyu, from the word kavod, avo, but tachshdeyu. Suspect him. In other words, there's a difference between giving kavod, honor, but at the same time, you got to check out the situation. The same as over here. There's a difference between befriending and becoming a friend and the idea of richuk, distancing yourself. In other words, that's why the Kamarna says that doing business is like, eating bread, playing golf together. You know what I'm saying? Becoming buddy-buddy. Becoming buddy-buddy to the point where you could learn from their acts and therefore reduce your commitment to Torah, that no. But the idea of reaching out and being makara of that, yes. So this is the first thing that he says in this paragraph to show us that the idea of kiruv isn't a chiddush of the Lubavitcher Rebbe as they tend to argue. What's the time now?
3:12 and after.
So any questions on this? Any thoughts on this, what we learned now? Now, I know that it might sound like, wait a second. It sounds like from the Kamarna and Rabbi Yoel bringing it over here that there's room today, okay? So today for kind of keeping a distance. First of all, we didn't read the rest of it. We didn't learn the rest. So we have to learn the rest. Second thing is, you have to put it in a context. Again, everything has to be put into context. What's the context of the discussion? The context of the discussion is assuming they're Rishayim. We don't assume they're Rishayim. This whole discussion, Hillel, you understand, Moshe is about assuming they're Rishayim.
When we say Rishayim, so that's my question. I'm sorry to interrupt
Yes.
you, but are we talking about the Rishayim in the classical sense, or are we talking about the Rishayim as is defined by the Balatanya?
It's the Rishayim as defined by the Satmar. That if you don't keep Shabbos and you don't put tefillin on, you're a Russia. And what does the Balatanya and the Rebbe say? No, they're tinoikis shenishbiu. They're not the only ones that say their children have been captured in war, so they don't fall into the whole category of Rishayim. So yes, if you have someone who learned in Slobodka, or learned in Chabad, or learned in whatever, Chappelle's, and came to a point, then all of a sudden they get up. I mean, I think you have this in Eretz Yisrael, these posters. I remember, these people who were from and they become frying, they become anti. Maybe they would be in the Gedev of Russia. I and we, Chabad, we don't consider ourselves the authorities to go and label people Rishayim. We have our own issues to deal with. We have our own Rishayim inside. But those that, yes, Moshe.
I'm just on that point. I mean, I think today, in most circles, certainly most Rabbanim, I don't know most Rabbanim, but I think it's pretty clear that even people like that, like you just described, people who they were raised religious, they left, they went off, so to speak, and now they're anti. Even those people, I mean, why did they go off to begin with? Obviously, there was a lack of, they also need to be loved. They also,
Right.
Because obviously there was something that was missing to begin with.
Right. On that note, Simon Jacobson, the other night he was speaking, and I overheard him say, he said that he said a story. Maybe you guys heard it in the past. He said that he was once, it used to be fashionable to do talks at bookstores as an author. I myself did. I did it in Baltimore. I forget the name. You were living at that time there, Hilla. I forget. There was a nice chain. It wasn't a Jewish chain, but they were very open. And we did no, not Barnes and Noble. No, Barnes and a local chain in the Baltimore, Washington area. I forget now. It'll come to me.
Maybe Borders Books?
No, an unknown name. Anyway, so Simon was invited to do when his book came out, Meaningful Life, in S. Cruz, California. Okay, and he talks and he gives his talk over there, and a girl or a young lady comes up there, and she says, "Very interesting. It reminds me of my youth." He says, "Really? What's your youth?" "I grew up in Borough Park. I went to Beis Yaakov, and my teachers drilled into me the whole time how, non-religious Jews are, a lot of negativity, and I didn't like it. And my parents, went along, and she says, and I decided as a teenager to leave home. I've never come back yet, And she says, I went out to San S. Cruz, and that was the life. You chilled, you take a little weed or more than weed, and you walk with your sandals, and it's beautiful. And, I got into a different lifestyle. So she, and Simon heard her, and he didn't, fight. So I'm saying, here's a girl, grows up in Borough Park in Brooklyn, goes to Beis Yaakov. She obviously knew, and she related to a lot of the things. And I think she said to him, like, "What are you doing here? With your beard?" He says, like she said, like, "What are you doing here? Like what are you doing over here? This is me and my friends, and I left this culture." So there is 1 second, you're innocent. It's true, but again, remember, as we learn this, you got to put yourself in their shoes where these guys are coming from, and where they're coming from is they don't look at the world this way. So the Yoel is constantly opening their eyes and trying to convince them through Torah, not through emotions, and through Chazal and like where you're coming from, you're doing it all wrong. Yes, you're innocent.
Ex-wife, when we got divorced, we were living in Munster, and she moved upstate
Joseph, face your computer.
she got a shidduch with a Satmar guy.
Okay.
The Satmar guy, he flat out completely. He went to High Fall. He got a very good job in Poughkeepsie, working for IBM. And then the Chabad Satmar,
I know Tybon Fliegel. I know him. Yeah.
He married my ex-wife.
Okay.
So and they used to sit and smoke on Chabad and learn the water and eat charters. A whole heaven of them.
But I want to say that to the to the tzaddik, the Kamarna, was talking about a big tzaddik. In Europe, and in that time, there still were real apikursim. I mean, or real. There were people, Yiddishisten, Bundes. So at that time, the culture was taka that they're Rishoyim. They want to kill us. They mamish. They laugh at Yiddishkeit. But that finished. That really pretty much finished. So Reb Yoel is. This maybe he'll say it later. He doesn't say what I'm just saying that finished. But that's what he's like that. So that when the Kamarna Hillel writes, these things that the mitzvah l'archika, you not do business with them. We're talking about people that want to stab you in the back. They smile at you and they want to kill you. They want to kill you one way or the other. They hate you. You know, but the Alter Rebbe, who lived around the same time or whatever, or before or after, it seems like he had a different shita, even than the Kamarna. Even though in Tanya he brings in chapter 32, when we relearn that chapter, when we get up to it in Chitas, he talks about the Rishoyim. Yeah, absolutely. In other words, you cannot say it doesn't exist. It exists in the Mishnah and Pirkei Avos. So it's emes. The question is how you explain that. So if someone takas a Rasha, don't do business with them. Like, would you do business with someone you know is doing a Ponzi scheme? No, you'd stay hundreds of miles away. He's a ganef, a thief. Well, there are people who spiritually want to destroy Yiddishkeit, Rachmana litzlan. I don't have to go into it, but this has been, with Eretz Yisrael, with the Yaldei Teiman. I mean, all kind. It's a lot of bits, a lot of things of real rishis to and again, these people coming from Europe, coming from the Cheder, like why, so they make political decisions and then give away children and raise them like goyim and things like that. It's not. So, but that period is finished. So today, we could say it again. We could say they say no. The Satmar and Turakarta, they argue today that they're still being done, and that's why they say they're Rishoyim and stay away. And this is the discussion. So it'd be a fallacy on my part not to tell you that it doesn't exist today. It does. And to cite Isser, as he said, Zioni zeh ein Yehudi, or whatever the quote was. Unfortunately, but it's Ashgacha Pratis. We're talking about this today. Today is Chofal of Kislev. You know what happened Chofal of Kislev? The Satmar Rebbe, Rabbi Yoel Teitelbaum, was saved by a Zionist Kastner. And that's acceptable. That's acceptable.
What's the story? I don't know the story.
His Isser, you know the story?
I don't know the story, but it's a big day in Satmar.
Basically, Kastner saved a lot of Hungarian Jews by paying for them to get them on the ship, and they got out. Yeah, so he was a Jewish person. He wasn't religious. He was a Russia, right? And he was a Zionist, a bigger Russia. And he put the Satmar Rebbe on the list, and he saved his life. And today, Chof Aleph Kislev is a day that he arrived or he was put on the boat. Today is a massive celebration in Satmar, Kiryas Yoel and Williamsburg, wherever. They make a major Suda, like we do with Yutas Kislev. You know the joke that they say, this is the joke that always goes around in Borough Park and, in these communities. Hasidus lasted for one day. On Yutas Kislev, Lubavitchers say it's Rosh Hashanah of Hasidus. It's the birth of Hasidus, right? Chafal of Kislev, the Satmar Rebbe said, remember I told you, in the late 50s, Nishtakcha Toras Habal Shem Tov Chassidus, Toras Chassidus. We forgot the ways of Chassidus. That means a Chafal of Kislev, right? The Satmar Rebbe was saved. He says, we forgot the ways of Chassidus. On Yutas Kislev, the Lubavitcher says, no, this is the birth of Chassidus. So how many days did it last? One, Chaf, Yutas, Chafal. But
I have a question.
Yes.
Related to something tangentially related
Yeah.
to this, but brought this up, and maybe for another time.
Yeah.
It occurred to me as you were talking that when I was growing up and I was a young person, I had so many encounters with Christian missionaries trying to, very evangelical here in Israel and in California and in New York and all over. So, and it occurred to me, I don't think my kids ever encountered that. I don't know if it's part of their world in the same kind of way. And I was wondering, in one of the in the Rebbe's Chumash, at the end of Parshas, I guess it's Parshas Toldos, where it has the, or right before Parshas Toldos, but by Yishlach, where it has the recounting of the Doros of Asa, it talks about two names of two kings, and you made a comment, I don't remember it exactly, but in the Rebbe's Chumash, he brings that the idea that there will be two qualities in the Galus Edom, a harder one and a softer one. And I just was wondering if you could expand on that concept.
Let me do this. Let me look at what it says. So, which Chumash are you referring to?
They just call it the Rebbe's Chumash. It's I could get it and show you the cover. It's somebody in California put it out.
Oh yeah, okay. I know it's Chumash. Okay, and it's the end of Parshas told us.
By Yishlach, I think, where it recounts the kings of Edom.
The kings. So there's a graph. There's a graph, like also or not?
I don't remember that, but I do remember that one of the names of one of the kings was Magdiel.
Magdiel. Okay, so let me over Shabbos and Hashem.
I appreciate that.
I'll look at it and then comment if I have what to comment intelligently. Yes, Moshe.
Which Chumash is some of the good Chumash?
No.
Which one?
I don't have it here to show you, but it's.
I'll get it. I'll show you the cover.
Yeah, it was put out. I think by Rabbi Wisniewski, who lives in Yerushalayim, and it's basically based on the Rebbe's interpretations of Rashi and for 40 plus years, many years. Here, it's a blue cover.
Can you see that cover?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Hillel, just for your information, so it's been when that came out, it came out in 5 separate volumes with that brown cover. But today, it's all in one large volume with a blue cover. Just you should know that.
Oh yeah.
You can get all 5 in one cover. And actually, I really, if you really are interested in knowing kind of Chassidus from on the Parsha, that's the Chumash to use. They're based on the Rebbe and Chabad Chassidus. Not just on the Rebbe, on Chabad Chassidus. Yeah. Oh, that's it. That's it. The one that Isser has.
Which one? I don't see it.
That's it.
I didn't see it. Whoever's putting it up, just talk and.
Chumash. That's Chumash.
Chumash. Synagogue edition. Hillel, it's the same one as you have, but it's just been put into very thin paper and all in one volume. I believe it's the same one that you have.
Okay, so I just found what the pasuk is. It's pasuk Mem Gimel.
Mem Gimel. Wait. Is it Perik Mem Gimel? Perik?
No, pasuk at the end of Perik 36.
36, chapter 36, verse Mem Gimel, okay? 43.
Actually, here's a note that I'm reading. Maybe we can discuss it more another time. The chief of Magdiel, the last pasuk, Aleph Magdiel.
Aliyah Magdiel.
And then Aleph.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, Aleph Magdiel.
Okay, good. And so just I see what now I'm remembering what I was looking for.
Okay, so listen.
It describes
Hello.
2 levels.
Okay,
two levels, but it sounds like it'll be something interesting to talk about.
Okay. Do me a favor. Take a picture and WhatsApp it to me. Could you do that?
I don't know. We'll see how it comes out.
Okay, and therefore we can put it on the group, and if we'll discuss, I have to see. I mean, if it's out of context with what we're learning, we'll have to wait. But I could just answer briefly, okay? Because I do want to, I want to finish this letter. Anyway, everyone, have a great Hanukkah meal, great Shabbos, and we'll learn in Mitzvah Monday. Sei gesund and great Shabbos and good Yom Tov. Bye. Take care.